the phrase that I used today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that the Buccaneers are ahead of schedule. And going into the season, and especially when things were not going right for the Buccaneers, I was always under the impression that the Buccaneers were not going to win a Super Bowl this year, but they were going to win a Super Bowl next year. And that was just because there was very evidently a chess match going on between head coach Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. And the timetable as to when the Buccaneers would be Super Bowl contenders, for me, would be based on, okay, when is Bruce Arians going to get out of the way and let Tom Brady be Tom Brady? Because Tom Brady and Bruce Arians both have tremendous egos, and when you have an ego clash like that, especially between head coach and quarterback, there can be a lot of disorganization. And I think that is what you would see, and that what you have seen when you take a look at how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' season went. Of course, starting off with a loss to the Saints in week 1, and then things didn't necessarily get that much better. It was very inconsistent. Some weeks they looked great. Other weeks, one week they completely blew out the Green Bay Packers, who, as at the top of the show I said, I think are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Completely blew out the Packers, and then they drop a bunch of absolute duds. I can't remember exactly the score and the team, but I remember just like Tom Brady getting absolutely annihilated. I think it was a primetime game as well. But the team looked just disjointed, and all of a sudden, a team that was considered to be a Super Bowl contender was only 7-5 by week 13 of the season, and of course they won the rest of their games. After the week 13 bye made the entire difference, and that is the point that I think a lot of experts will point to, and I'll continue to point to as well, as a turning point in the season when Bruce Arians was able to say, fine, this is your team, I step out, let's start focusing the offense, let's start adapting the offense to you instead of you adapting to the offense. And I think that was the biggest problem, because keep in mind, Tom Brady's 43 years old. I think his arm structure, his arm fidelity is much better than Drew Brees's, and that's very evident in how the game was played last night. Tom Brady was able to drive the ball with much more force than Drew Brees was able to. Now, granted, Tom Brady wasn't playing with a recovering 11 broken ribs and a punctured lung, but I digress. Last night looked more like a Tom Brady offense. It looked more like an offense that Tom Brady played with the Patriots, as opposed to the first 12 weeks of the season where it was very evident that Bruce Arians was trying to fit a circular ball into a square hole, with Tom Brady trying to get Tom Brady to adapt to his offense, trying to throw different passes and different schemes than he ran in New England, instead of Bruce Arians saying, okay, I understand that my offense was fantastic last year, but you're the greatest of all time. We need to cater better to you. So, since that realization and since that switch happened so early, that's why the Buccaneers are ahead of schedule, and that's why the Buccaneers are in the NFC Championship game this year. Because I had originally thought that this realization by Bruce Arians was going to happen at the end of this season after the Buccaneers got an early exit from the playoffs. But to the point that they are now competing in the NFC Championship against the Green Bay Packers, that realization, that flipped switch by Bruce Arians and Tom Brady made all the difference. And of course, there's other variables at play. Tom Brady getting more comfortable with the Buccaneers receiving core, the addition of Antonio Brown, which hasn't been as monumental as a lot of people thought it was going to be, but still having another weapon like that for Tom Brady was great for Tom Brady. And the Buccaneers genuinely are a threat. Now, I think that the defense was what won the Buccaneers the game yesterday. Obviously, intercepting Drew Brees 3 times is going to be able to win you a lot of games, and the field position was really good off of those defensive turnovers as well. It wasn't like, Drew Brees is throwing long bombs, and they essentially equate to punts, but just end up in the interception category. No, like, these interceptions were in Saints territory. They gave the Buccaneers great field position, and the Buccaneers were able to drive past the Saints and be able to win the game. The defense is what ended up winning the game for Tampa Bay last night, but it still doesn't subside the fact or overshadow the fact that Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and the Buccaneers offense still, even though they had a slow start, still mostly have it together. And since that switch in Week 13 where Bruce Arians said, okay, I'm going to let you be Tom Brady, the Buccaneers are playing much better. They're ahead of schedule, and they are a threat in the NFC. I don't think they're going to beat the Packers. I think you need to be able to outscore the Packers. That's kind of like a no-dust statement. You need to outscore the other team in order to beat them. Like, good job, sports commentator. Brilliant analysis there. But my point is that you don't slow down, or you don't like completely stop the Packers. You need to slow them down, and in that essence outscore them. And I don't think that the Buccaneers have enough on defense to be able to do that. But the Buccaneers are still ahead of schedule. I thought they were going to be bounced out in either the wild card or the divisional round, and here they are in the NFC Championship. And it's all because Bruce Arians and Tom Brady stopped their ego chess match and started to work together, as opposed to trying to force each other's will upon each other. And I think that is what you'll look at when you take a look at the Buccaneers' tale of two seasons, starting off 7-5, ending 11-5, and now, of course, as I say repeatedly, in the NFC Championship game. So, it's good to see for Tom Brady that he was able to do this without Bill Belichick. And I guess if you wanted to get into a discussion about who won the divorce between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, I think the people that are shouting, "Oh, Tom Brady won," are now shouting it even louder, saying, with taking a look at where Tom Brady is as opposed to Bill Belichick. But it certainly was not without a lot of effort and a lot of learning curve from Bruce Arians and Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Buccaneers are ahead of schedule. It's going to be interesting to see how they do against the Green Bay Packers. I don't think they'll win that game. At least that's my opinion now, but we'll see. We'll see how things end up towards the end of the week. Maybe I'll end up changing my mind. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard-Headed Sports Podcast. If you're interested in watching more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell to turn on those notifications so you never miss an upload. If you're interested in listening to the whole show in its entirety, you can listen to the show on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor. Again, thank you so much for watching the show. I hope you have an incredible day, and I will see you all very soon.
Set the place on fire.